Hey friends, Mikester here, and thank you for joining us today for this occasional segment that we do called Pause for the Cause. Because as you can tell, right here with me is our own Dr. Lamar Smith. And our Pause for the Cause today is, I think it falls in the category of all the places that God allows us to find happiness and serve in. And you are the best example of that that I can imagine.
Well, most people can't imagine that we moved 4 times into 4 new conferences.
No.
Yes, I started in the Texas conference over in East Texas, in the capital of Wood County called Mineola. And with my 5 brothers and 2 sisters, we grew up there. We were in church every Sunday, and when in a beer garden on the desert, and when I was in the Navy, we were talking about what we were going to do when we got out of here, and I couldn't think of anything else, and I couldn't think of anything else I can do, so I just said, I'm thinking about ministry. Well, that gave the troops a moment of entertainment. But as it turned out, when I got out of the Navy in August of 46, I started to Texas Wesleyan in search of my theological education. I love Texas Wesleyan. It meant a lot to me. I was not ready for college. My grades hadn't been that good in high school.
You're not the only person who had that experience.
And I had been out of high school 2 years. So I jumped in and had my GI Bill for 3 of those years. And then Dr. Sohn helped me through my last year to get my degree. So Texas Wesleyan really was a perfect place for me to
I bet it
start.
Was.
It was.
Oh gosh, I bet so.
Perfect.
And my understanding, Lamar, is that from Texas Wesleyan and then from the time you spent at the Perkins School of Theology, that led to your first appointment, which just happened to be here in Fort Worth, correct?
Well, let me tell you, Mike, one of the other theologues offered me his appointment. And I really didn't know, what he was offering me, but it was 2 little churches in the Corsicana area, Bristol and Trumbull. One paid me $200 a year. The other paid me $300 a year. And lo, I learned at the end of the year that out of that $500 was to come all of the conference's needs. So
your salary went down dramatically.
That's right. It went down to nothing, and it hadn't been much more than that before. So it was a slight drop. But you're right. My first real appointment was here at First Church Fort Worth, and it became a 13-year time for me to begin my ministry. I was afraid of what the conference might do to me, where they might send me, and I was scared. I didn't know how the Methodist Church worked exactly. So when I learned in my carpool driving to Dallas for my education at Perkins School of Theology, somebody in the carpool said, Dr. Foote is looking for an associate minister at First Methodist Fort Worth. Well, I thought I've never had a job in a real church, and that's a real deal. So I went in the first day. The next day, after calling him and making an appointment, and he was opening his mail and invited me to sit down, which I did. And he continued opening his mail, and finally he looked up at me and said, "Lamar Smith?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Can you get along with people?" I said, "Dr. Foote, I've just finished seminary, and I don't know the first thing about running a church, but I can get along with people." He said, "You're hired. I'll call the bishop." And he went back to opening his mail. So I assumed that was the end of our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it continued. Surprisingly, a couple of days later, when he stepped into the office that I had been assigned, and he said, "Did I tell you that I anticipate 400 new members a year?"
400 new members.
And I said, "No, sir, no, sir. I'd never asked anybody to join the church in my life." And now I'm facing an unbelievable task for me. But would you believe at the end of the conference year, we had received 400 new members.
Oh gosh!
We
Congratulations.
had. Well, it was a trial, and I decided I couldn't do this forever, so I organized a fisherman's club, and that kept me from going out every night of the week when my dear wife was trying to rear the cannibals, and they were really a great help to me. And we would come together on Thursday nights. I would have the names of prospects on these cards and the results of other visits with them. And each of the fishermen would go in pairs, and they would take these cards as assignments from me, and they were very faithful. They kept coming Thursday after Thursday and helping me, and every year with their help, we received 400 new members.
Wow. It's a huge compliment to all of you.
I tell you, they were so faithful, and they didn't have any training. All they knew was how the church had blessed them, how this church had been a blessing to their families, and that's all I told them to tell them about, what the church had meant to them, and invite them to become a part of this community of faith.
Wow.
And it worked. It worked. Gosh. For 13 years, we received 400 new members a year, which sort of doubled the membership at the time. And Dr. Foote was a great preacher. He wasn't the best at getting along with people, and I guess that's what he wanted to know about me.
That's why he had you.
I guess so. But it was a great learning experience. And I preached on Sunday nights, and I helped with the young people occasionally. But I was mostly in evangelism. And I loved it.
Oh.
And I'm still doing it in a different way.
That's right, you are. And I know you've told me that over time, after leaving First Methodist of Fort Worth, you had the opportunity to serve in places like Wichita Falls.
Right.
And Baton Rouge.
Yes.
And Conroe.
Conroe, Texas.
And then in Houston, which is kind of the home of the Texas annual conference,
right.
You had a chance. You were the conference provost.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. Before that, I was a district superintendent.
I forgot that. That's right.
Well, it's worth forgetting, but it's.
I'm sure there are no DSs watching right now.
They would agree, but they wouldn't say so. But I was asked to be the assistant to the bishop and provost of the conference after my 6 years as a district superintendent.
Yes. And then in 1997, when you hit the age of 70, you were required to retire from full-time service.
That's right.
And you and your wife, Doris, decided to come back to where it all began. You came back to Fort Worth.
And the First United Methodist Church.
That's right. And have been
and
here.
I was very pleased. I think my total yardage now. He's 35 years or something, but it's all been a learning experience. It's been a blessing to me and to my family, and I just I could not have had a better life. I moved 4 times. I started here in Central Texas and moved to North Texas, which is where the University Church in Midwestern University in Wichita Falls is. Then the bishop wanted us to go to the University Church in Louisiana, which we were immediately adjacent to the LSU campus.
Correct.
It was exciting. We stayed there 8 years, though at first they really did not want anybody from Texas because they were proud of their Louisiana pulpit. And
because you came from a county rather than living in a parish, right?
That's right. That's right. And I didn't have to have a license plate on the front of my car. Yeah. So I would just advertise
Tons of differences.
University Methodist Church or something on the front of my car. But it was the University Church in Baton Rouge was something unique. It was
Good.
was beautiful, and we came to love those people, and they came to love us.
Oh,
and I finally accepted a cowboy. They thought I was. There aren't any cowboys in Mineola, of course. But I loved those years.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I know.
And then we came back to the Texas Conference. I grew up in the Texas Conference in Mineola, which was a member of the Tyler district in the northern part of that conference. But it was a rather dramatic change to come back from Louisiana then and serve a county seat town, the first county seat north of Houston, which means we were really growing.
Yeah, I bet.
And I accidentally got into the evangelism business again, and we found a bunch of prospects who had never been contacted, and so my new associate and I had a great day on the first Sunday in December that year when we received 51 people into the church. And it caused me to start counting. And at the end of those 6 years, I received the 1,500th member into the church.
That's extraordinary.
As we got ready to move to Houston to be a district superintendent.
Gosh.
So
what a rich career.
Well, you've
been fun. Had a chance. And there's a neat, I don't want to forget this. Once you came back to Fort Worth, and then I'm guessing this was maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, Texas Wesleyan, your alma mater, asked you if you would serve for a year or so as the interim president of Texas Wesleyan University.
It was a very high honor. Texas Wesleyan has honored me in several ways, and that was a nice honor, I'll tell you.
Gosh.
They also granted me a doctorate, and that was really good. And all the time I was in ministry, nobody ever asked me where I got that doctorate or what kind of doctorate is it. And
how much cereal did you have to eat to get that?
Well, it was fun.
Oh, I know. And now we were talking in the moment with Mike about your birthday party last week, and the surprise party happened across Rosedale from Texas Wesleyan University at the brand new Central Texas Conference Center that's there, and we went there because of the area that's named for you.
Thank you.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was totally surprised again when Dr. Brewster told me that a section of the building was to be named in my honor, the section of the building that dealt with evangelism and church growth.
Correct.
And I was flattered, and he said, all we have to do now is raise $100,000. Well, gosh, I thought,
What
well,
can go wrong with that?
That was a nice idea somebody had. But it was raised, and
It was.
And there is now a cabinet with a glass front holding some of my memorabilia.
Yes.
And the people at my birthday surprise party out there last week
we all had a chance to see it.
came up to see and hear me brag a little
Oh my gosh, you
about
told
this or that.
such good stories. And what I noticed from that I think is really neat is that near the cabinet that you're talking about, there is a whole area that really is the Lamar Smith section for evangelism and church growth, because the offices of every person serving in those areas on the conference staff are right there, and a number of them were outside with us, and it was just the neatest thing.
Well, it was very flattering, and I'm very grateful.
Well, I'll tell you what, as you joked about in our weekly video, you've had a huge 90th birthday celebration. You're already making plans for the 100th, which will be big. And so you didn't really think that 91 would be noteworthy.
No, I thought I'd have to wait 9 more years for another party.
No.
It was wonderful.
We'll find ways every year to somehow catch you off guard. That's going to be our goal.
Good.
Great. Well, Lamar, I'm just speaking on behalf of every member of this church and every staff member. We are thrilled to be in ministry with you, and we are thrilled for all the ways that God uses your life as a blessing for others.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet. Lamar, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Friends, this has been Pause for the Cause.